This vast world conceals countless dungeons, many filled with deadly traps and terrifying creatures guarding priceless treasures. Some dungeons have been explored and exploited by adventurers, but there are still places where no one has set foot, hidden by time and shrouded in mysterious mist. Among them are many labyrinths that even seasoned warriors cannot access. These special locations are called hidden dungeons, where countless mysteries exist that only those with enough courage can discover. Noor is the third son of a low-ranking noble family. Despite possessing noble lineage, his position in the family brings neither power nor significant status. After completing his education, he faces two choices: continue his academic path or find stable employment. However, a higher-ranking nobleman interferes, preventing Noor from finding work. Witnessing this difficult situation, Alice, his younger sister, suggests an alternative path: participating in the Hero Academy's admission exam. If he becomes a student there, he could train to become a monster hunter or a royal knight, opening opportunities to change his own destiny. During his preparation, he receives help from Emma Brightness, a childhood friend from a wealthy noble family. Emma has always cared for Noor and understands him better than anyone. Among the rare abilities he possesses is a special skill called Great Sager. This ability allows Noor to receive information about all phenomena in the world, but each time he uses it, a severe headache follows, making it almost unbearable. Previously, a sage who possessed this ability experienced a similar condition and found a way to reduce the pain through kisses from the person they loved. Upon learning this, Emma doesn't hesitate to offer her help. Initially reluctant, Noor agrees to try when the pain becomes too intense. To avoid curious glances from others, they find a more secluded place, and after the moment their lips touch, the headache subsides, allowing Noor to use Great Sager more effectively. If symptoms persist, they will continue this method until he can control his power. To qualify for the Hero Academy, Noor needs to prove his abilities by conquering a dungeon. Under the guidance of Great Sager, he decides to explore a hidden dungeon deep in the mountains, where no one has ever set foot. As he enters, a voice echoes in his mind, leading him to a mysterious room. There, Noor encounters a female warrior who has been sealed for over 2 centuries. This girl is Olivia Servant, a legendary explorer who once possessed overwhelming power. During her exploration of this dungeon, she quickly defeated the monster on the 2nd floor in the blink of an eye. However, after defeating it, a deadly trap was activated, imprisoning her in this dark space for over 200 years. The magical chain binding her is directly connected to her life. Anyone wanting to break the seal must face serious consequences. If the chain is broken, Olivia will vanish from the world. Though imprisoned, Olivia can still bestow power on worthy individuals. To receive her skills, Noor only needs to touch her forehead. After breaking Olivia's seal, Noor receives 3 extraordinary skills from her. The first ability, Creation, allows him to create any skill as long as he can clearly visualize it in his mind. The second ability helps him grant skills to others, opening up countless possibilities for collaboration with teammates. Finally, Edit allows him to modify his own skills or those of anyone else, making normal abilities more powerful or changing their characteristics as desired. However, to use these powers, Noor needs to expend a special resource. LP stands for life points, meaning life force points. The more powerful skills he uses, the more LP is consumed. If LP is completely depleted, the price to pay is his life. The only way to replenish LP is to enjoy life's pleasures, moments of intimacy with beautiful girls. With a total of 550 LP at the start, Noor quickly experiments with his abilities. After a battle that consumes much energy, he returns home exhausted. Alice, his adorable little sister who always cares deeply for him, immediately takes care of him. The feeling of being comforted by someone who deeply cares causes significant LP recovery. He gains an additional 100 points just from a hug. The next day, Noor decides to meet Emma. Since learning that LP can increase through intimate actions, he is curious to verify this once more. Surprisingly, even a simple hug causes LP to surge beyond expectations. Previously, Olivia had mentioned a skill requiring 300 LP to activate, which helps him see detailed information about all objects and creatures. Thanks to Emma's presence, Noor quickly recovers enough LP to use this skill. While talking, he notices Emma seems to have shoulder pain. The reason isn't hard to understand. This girl constantly deals with the strain of her well-endowed figure. To show concern, Noor uses Edit to reduce their size. However, Emma's reaction is completely unexpected. She immediately asks him to restore her original state, making Noor awkwardly comply. Time passes, and the Hero Academy's entrance exam officially begins. The challenge for candidates is to collect ingredients from monsters. Each group consists of 3 people, cooperating to complete the mission. Noor is very surprised to learn that Emma has also registered for this exam. If she becomes a student, she won't be able to spend as much time with him as before. While the two are talking, another noble named Lorraine actively asks to join his group. Coming from a prestigious family, she doesn't initially respect Noor due to his low status. Though the challenge seems simple, hunting a few ordinary monsters, an unexpected situation quickly occurs. Instead of facing multiple low-level creatures, Noor's group encounters a giant monster with a level reaching 99, a huge disparity compared to his current level. If struck by one of its blows, the outcome would certainly be irreversible. In this dangerous situation, he immediately uses creation to create the gravity skill, helping to slow down the opponent. Next, he activates Great Tryon to restrain its movement. These two skills consume nearly 200 LP, quickly exhausting him. But he has no other choice. To finish off the enemy, he uses all remaining strength, consuming 100 LP to create a top 10 bullet, a shot with tremendous destructive power. When the final shot rings out, the monster falls, bringing a spectacular victory. At the end of the competition, the rankings are announced, and no one expected Noor's group to take first place. Thanks to this victory, he receives the Mark of Dead along with some rare items. Olivia had previously given him these items without much thought. For her, they held no significant value, but for him, they are extremely precious spoils. After passing the exam, Noor officially becomes a student at the Hero Academy. Thinking difficulties have ended, when he looks at the tuition fee required for enrollment, he quickly realizes a major problem. This amount is completely beyond his ability to pay. Initially, he approaches his father to discuss this issue, but the man's reaction is completely unexpected. His father's attitude makes Noor realize that he cannot rely on family help. From there, he decides to earn the necessary money within a week. With few options, Noor immediately goes to find Olivia's servant for advice. The fastest way to make money is to become an adventurer and complete missions from the guild. Upon arrival, he is greeted by Nona, the person responsible for guiding newcomers about the mission ranking system and the guild's operating procedures. Each mission is divided by rank. Those with outstanding achievements will have opportunities for promotion and access to missions with greater rewards. To join the guild, he needs to register personal information along with a list of current skills. Since this is confidential information, no one else can access it, helping him feel more secure about keeping his true abilities secret. However, as soon as Nona sees his skills, her attitude changes completely. The expression on her face quickly shifts from normal to extreme surprise. The reason is very clear. She discovers he possesses Edit, a skill that can change the nature of other abilities. This is especially important because his master, Olivia, was the founder of the Adventurer Guild system. In the past, there have been many imposters claiming to be Olivia's successors, causing the guild to be highly vigilant. Therefore, Nona wants to test Noor once more to confirm his true identity. The testing method is very simple. Noor just needs to place his hand on a special book that will accurately display the skills he possesses. Nona initially shows disbelief and thinks he's just boasting about his abilities. However, as soon as the book confirms the accurate information, all doubts immediately dissolve. According to her initial promise, Nona can do nothing but perform a very surprising action. Noor doesn't think that just by looking at Nona in an embarrassed state could increase his LP by 300 points. Nevertheless, this LP will certainly be very helpful for him in the coming time. Currently, Noor urgently needs a large sum of money in a short time, so Nona suggests a D-rank mission. This is a challenge that isn't too difficult, but still offers a worthy reward. At this point, if he uses Great Sager to find the fastest way to complete the mission, he would easily get the answer. However, the biggest problem with this skill is its side effect. The terrible headache makes it almost unbearable. Although Noor has created an immunity skill against headaches caused by Great Sager, the discomfort hasn't completely disappeared. If Emma were present, he would certainly feel much better. Just as that thought flashes, the girl suddenly appears before him. However, unlike usual, this time Emma seems quite upset. She isn't happy to learn that Noor joined the Adventurer Guild without informing her. Since childhood, they had promised to always be together, overcoming all challenges no matter what. Those carefree days when they roamed everywhere looking for rare grasshoppers are now just a distant memory. Emma feels disappointed upon learning that Noor has found a way to resist the side effects of Great Sager. Even so, he hasn't completely escaped the aching sensation, which means Emma can still help him reduce that discomfort. Not wanting her to be sad any longer, Noor immediately moves closer and gives Emma a kiss. The girl quickly regains her cheerful mood as before. Thanks to the rare grasshopper catching mission, Noor earns a considerable amount of money. Even so, this sum is still not enough to cover tuition at the Hero Academy. Understanding his difficult situation, Nona proposes another mission with a rather generous reward, taking care of a special kind of monster. As she speaks, Nona continuously moves closer and clings to Noor, making Emma quite uncomfortable. Not wanting the two girls to continue competing for his attention, he quickly uses sweet words to soothe the situation. After things settle down, both begin the next mission together. Not far along, a giant creature suddenly appears before them, a massive rabbit with formidable strength, its level even higher than Emma's. In this situation, Noor asks her to step back to avoid danger. However, Emma refuses. She doesn't want to always rely on Noor. If he keeps doing everything, other girls will surely continue to surround him. Emma strikes first, but despite possessing superior speed, the damage she inflicts is still not enough to defeat the monster. Noticing the opponent preparing a counterattack, Noor immediately uses Bullet to support, creating an opportunity for both to temporarily retreat. During the waiting period, Emma can't hide her disappointment in herself. She feels too weak compared to Noor. Seeing Emma discouraged, Noor thinks about using Edit to enhance her strength. However, direct modification would consume up to 500 LP. With his current points, that would put him in a dangerous situation. Therefore, he decides to make a deal with Emma. He will help her become stronger, but in return, she must agree to help him with something. Noor wants to increase his LP before facing the giant rabbit. He gently takes Emma's hand, his eyes not hiding the anticipation. The girl doesn't object and even allows him to do whatever he wants. Without further hesitation, Noor bends down and places a kiss on her ear. The soft sensation leaves him somewhat reluctant to stop. However, time doesn't allow for long hesitation. When LP increases by 600 points, the giant rabbit has also tracked down their position. Recognizing the imminent danger, Noor creates a giant stone statue to block the monster's path. At the same time, he consumes 500 points to enhance Emma's combat skills, helping her deal with the creature before them. However, what he didn't anticipate was the monster's strength being so great that it could completely destroy the stone wall in the blink of an eye. When the barrier collapses, the rabbit rushes in at a terrifying speed. Before Noor can react, Emma immediately charges forward to confront it. Thanks to the enhancement from Edit, she quickly turns the tables, delivering a decisive blow to defeat the enemy. Seeing the giant monster fall, Noor can't help but feel relieved. He not only protected himself, but also helped Emma become stronger. That evening, they returned to the guild with the rabbit's horns to report the mission. Thanks to this excellent achievement, Emma and Nona seem to have become much closer. Noor also takes the opportunity to create a special space bag, helping him bring the entire carcass of the giant rabbit back to the guild. According to rumor, the meat of this creature has an exceptionally exquisite flavor. As expected, when people learn about the spoils, a barbecue party is quickly organized. The atmosphere is very lively, with everyone happily enjoying the delicious food. Thanks to the rewards from the mission, Noor finally has enough money to pay tuition for the Hero Academy. He never thought he would receive so many congratulations. This warm feeling is truly novel. Amid the bustling scene, Noor suddenly remembers the teacher who guided him on this path. Without his master's help, perhaps he would still be nothing more than a weakling. Thinking this, Noor decides to spend some time chatting with those around him. After all, this is a memorable day for him. After completing the tuition payment process, Noor and Emma officially began their new life at the Hero Academy. However, before everything could proceed smoothly, Emma forced him to bow before a powerful girl. That was Maria, daughter of a prestigious duke, who belonged to the highest noble class in the kingdom. Despite displaying pride and noble temperament, Maria still attracted Noor's attention with her elegant appearance and gentle demeanor. Sensing something amiss, he decided to use Great Sager to investigate. The result left him shocked. A deadly curse had attached itself to the girl. It was fated that on her 16th birthday, Maria would face death. The next morning, Noor woke up in a surprising situation. Elisa, his biological sister, had sneaked into his bed and slept beside him all night. Outside, Emma had been waiting since early morning, not hiding her excitement to start the day. Just before they set off for the academy, Emma suddenly made a bold request. She wanted Noor to give her a good morning kiss. Not wanting to refuse, he pulled her into a secluded corner and gently placed his lips on hers. Immediately, his LP increased significantly. At the Hero Academy, all students had to wear rank badges to identify their skill level. Although the noble class system was no longer crucial within the school grounds, the attitudes of other students toward Noor were not friendly. Coming from a low-ranking knight family, he was seen as a nobody not worth bothering about. Most nobles didn't care about people like him, and of course, high-class figures like Maria were completely out of reach. However, what surprised him was how Maria treated him. With no distance or contempt, she actively initiated conversation naturally. Though only a brief exchange, it was enough for Noor to understand that Maria was different from other nobles. Despite carrying noble blood, she had a pure and kind heart. Unfortunately, fate was cruel in binding her with a deadly curse. The first class quickly began, and Nor along with other students were introduced to their training instructor. Anna was a female warrior who was once a mercenary. Unlike many regular teachers, she was famous for her strict teaching style. Those who didn't train diligently would be taken care of in ways no one would want. Today, the class would learn self-defense in dangerous situations. Since monsters and bandits always appeared around the city, equipping survival skills was essential. Nor was assigned to attack Anna with all his strength. Before striking, he used Great Sager to analyze her power. When the information appeared before his eyes, he realized just how strong Anna was. Using all his strength, Nor swung his sword forward toward Anna with complete focus. However, she quickly stepped back, easily avoiding the attack. That was the defensive technique she intended to teach in today's training session, a quick movement method to evade enemy attacks. After the initial test, Anna changed positions and switched to offense. This time, Nor was the one who had to evade her attack. Confident that he could react in time, he prepared to counter. However, all calculations became meaningless when Anna's attack came down. Before he could make any movement, he was immediately taken down. The attack was so strong that he fell to the ground, feeling pain spreading throughout his body. Fortunately, no matter how badly injured, Anna could use a recovery skill to help him stand up. Emma, who had been observing the situation from beginning to end, suddenly spoke up. She claimed that if anyone could dodge one of Anna's attacks, that person would receive a special reward from her. Those words made Nor curious, but the more important thing now was to learn the backstep skill. To possess it, he needed to spend 200 life points. With no other choice, he immediately used Great Sager to create this skill. When Anna continued to rush toward him, Nor quickly applied the newly learned technique, successfully avoiding the attack this time, surprising many people around. Just as Emma had said earlier, Anna couldn't break her promise. She coldly walked over and sat on him quite naturally, silence enveloping the entire training ground. The other students, including Emma, all stared at this scene with undisguised jealousy. A female warrior trained from childhood, known for her cold demeanor, now bestowing such a strange reward. Though he had expected something more grand, what he received was simply Anna using him as a chair. Although slightly disappointed, he couldn't deny that his life points had just increased by 400 points. This made him start thinking about finding opportunities to experience this feeling again. The next part of the training required all students to pair up for combat. To ensure fairness, the fighting pairs would be arranged so that there was no major advantage in terms of acquaintance. However, since Nor came from a low-ranking knight family, this became a disadvantage. Maria, despite carrying the highest noble bloodline, did not show arrogance or look down on anyone. On the contrary, she had to work tirelessly to achieve a position worthy of her background. For her, those of warrior lineage, knights who were once ready to sacrifice for the kingdom, always deserved respect. Even though Nor was once just a commoner, he still carried the blood of those warriors, which made Maria believe in his abilities. Without hesitation, she actively chose Nor as her companion. This action surprised everyone around, especially Emma. Though saying nothing, she couldn't hide her discomfort seeing Maria and Nor becoming close. Elsewhere, Alice, who had always been watching over her brother, also noticed something unusual. A strange premonition rose within her, signaling that another girl was trying to approach Nor during training. Unexpectedly, Maria collapsed, her body losing all strength. Without a doubt, it was the curse causing this condition. This wasn't just an ordinary spell, but one that could make the subject experience extreme pain, torturing them until their vitality was depleted. A cruel curse, signaling imminent death on her 16th birthday. Recognizing the severity of the situation, Nor immediately checked information about the curse through Great Sager. The only method to remove it was to use the edit skill. However, the condition to perform it was extremely harsh. It required at least 8,000 life points, a huge number that he had never achieved before. With no other choice, Nor asked Great Sager to suggest ways to quickly collect points. A bold option appeared. If he had intimate contact with all the girls around him, each would help him collect a certain amount of life points. According to calculations, by doing this with just 4 people, he would have enough points needed. However, this idea immediately threw his mind into chaos. Severe headache, a familiar sign when he overused Great Sager. Unable to bear it any longer, Nor turned to Emma, who was sitting nearby. Without wasting time, he bent down and kissed her right in the middle of class. The familiar sensation spread, helping the pain completely disappear. But before he could enjoy the peaceful moment, a chill ran down his spine when he realized the presence of someone else. Right beside them, Anna had been standing there all along, arms crossed, looking at him with a cold gaze. She raised an eyebrow, her voice full of warning, as if to remind him that this was a classroom, not a place to publicly display affection. When it was time for lunch break, he decided to stop by the Adventurer Guild to look for more clues about the curse. As soon as he entered, he immediately noticed Nona behaving unusually. Upon seeing him, she quickly ran into her private room, as if not wanting to be discovered in her current state. A moment later, Nona came out looking much more put together. It seemed she hadn't expected Noor to visit at this time, forcing her to go to her room to fix her makeup. Ignoring that, he directly mentioned the main issue, the curse plating Maria. Nona frowned slightly, her face clearly showing worry. If a solution wasn't found soon, within a week Maria would certainly not survive. But fortunately, there was someone who could help. Luna, a talented priestess and also Nona's close friend, possessed the ability to dispel the strongest dark magic. However, there was a major problem. Despite having this ability, she rarely agreed to help anyone. Although Nona and Luna were close friends, even she couldn't guarantee that she would persuade the other party. Still, Noor had no intention of giving up. Even though Maria was the daughter of a highest-ranking noble family, she had never treated him as inferior. Among hundreds of people who looked at him with contempt, only she was the exception. For this reason, he would do everything to save her, no matter what he had to sacrifice. Today, Nona would take Noor to meet a priestess capable of removing curses. Before setting out, he decided to visit Olivia for advice. It had been 2 weeks since Noor last met her, and that silence clearly didn't please his master at all. From the moment she saw him, Olivia crossed her arms, her sharp gaze as if reproaching her student's indifference. Knowing he couldn't avoid it, Noor quickly explained the current situation. After listening, Olivia didn't seem too surprised, for nobles being affected by dangerous curses wasn't uncommon. Typically, to dispel them required a large amount of life points. However, if there was a priestess powerful enough to perform an exorcism, everything would become much simpler. Based on the description, Olivia speculated that the priestess Noor was about to meet was likely from the elf race. They were the species with the most powerful purification abilities, but if she truly was an elf, there was a way to collect life points more quickly. With a mysterious smile, Olivia gave him a new skill, Perverted Luck, costing only 300 life points to learn, with effects exceeding expectations. This skill helped him easily fall into intimate situations with others, thereby collecting larger amounts of points than normal. Despite some doubts about its practicality, Noor decided to try the skill his master had given him. As soon as he left Olivia's room, he met Emma, who was waiting to accompany him to the priestess. But just as they stepped outside, a stray cat suddenly ran by, causing Noor to lose balance. In the moment of falling, he accidentally fell toward Emma. A thud sounded when they collided, and immediately 300 life points were added. Before he could gather his thoughts, a strong wind suddenly blew across, making Emma's cloak float up slightly. At this time, Luna, the priestess they were about to meet, happened to pass by. A small accident occurred, causing Noor to accidentally touch her hand, resulting in his life points continuing to increase. Noor stood still for a moment, realizing just how terrifyingly effective Perverted Luck really was. In just a few short minutes, the amount of points collected was more than all previous times combined. Although the effectiveness far exceeded expectations, if this continued, daily life would certainly face countless troubles. Not wanting things to go too far, Noor quickly used Great Sager to adjust the skill, reducing its impact to an acceptable level. At this time, Nona and the priestess Luna had just arrived. Upon seeing them, Emma couldn't hide her surprise. Luna possessed an astonishingly well-balanced figure. Except for one point that Emma found puzzling. Compared to her overall build, it seemed only her bust was most prominent. Not caring about Emma's idle thoughts, Luna quickly got straight to the main issue. She had heard Nona briefly explain Maria's condition. It turned out Luna had encountered this case before and refused to intervene. Although possessing powerful purification abilities, the curse afflicting Maria was not simple. Even Luna wasn't strong enough to dispel it. Noor used Great Sager to check Luna more carefully. The information collected left him quite surprised. Indeed, she had the skill to remove curses, but each time it was used, her lifespan would be significantly shortened. Since elves had lifespans extending hundreds of years, a few years of loss might not be too worrisome. But with the strength of this curse, the price to pay would certainly not be small. Realizing this wasn't something that could be discussed in front of too many people, Noor pulled Luna to a secluded corner to talk privately. He wanted to know if she would be willing to trade her lifespan to save Maria. Luna didn't answer immediately. She remained silent for a few seconds, her eyes as if immersed in distant memories. Finally, Luna gently spoke. Her mother had also been someone who always put others' safety above herself. Although well aware that her lifespan was gradually diminishing, she never hesitated to treat anyone who needed help. She had used her entire life to save countless people, and for Luna, that was her greatest pride. While the two were talking, a loud noise suddenly rang out from the residential area. An old house unexpectedly collapsed, dust flying everywhere. People around quickly ran over, but a child was trapped inside, unable to escape. Without hesitation, Luna immediately approached. A gentle light spreading from her hands enveloped the weak body of the child. The bleeding wounds gradually closed, and breathing also became more stable. After Luna used her healing power for the injured child, her body immediately weakened, her eyes lost their alertness, and she staggered and collapsed on the spot. Nor hurriedly caught her, trying to examine the priestess's condition. Thanks to the great sager's skill, he quickly discovered something interesting. Luna not only possessed the ability to remove curses, but also had quite a special characteristic. Whenever she depleted her energy or faced dangerous situations, a defensive instinct would make her extremely shy, even possibly falling into a temporary state of panic. However, according to analysis, this condition wouldn't last too long. Just letting her rest a bit, everything would return to normal as if nothing had happened. Based on the newly obtained information, Noor suddenly came up with an important idea. Perhaps it wasn't necessary for Luna to sacrifice her lifespan to save Maria. If the operation of the skill could be adjusted, everything might go in a different direction. After carefully examining the mechanism of the curse removal magic, Noor came up with 2 adjustment options. The first method was to keep the original structure, continuing to use lifespan as the price to pay. However, the energy needed to dispel the curse was too great, resulting in the amount of lifespan consumed reaching 10,000 life points. The second option was much more feasible. Instead of using lifespan, he could change the payment mechanism to money. With this method, only 4,000 life points were needed to complete the curse removal without affecting Luna's life. However, although this option was more comfortable, Noor still didn't have enough life points to implement it immediately. To collect the necessary points, Noor proposed finding quick and effective point-earning methods. During the discussion, Nona suddenly mentioned a rather special event taking place at the end of this week. A wealthy nobleman regularly organized strange gatherings, and this event was given a name that couldn't be more bizarre: Showing Off My Harem. Hearing this, Noor couldn't help but frown. According to Nona's explanation, the nobleman behind this event seemed to have a not-so-pleasant past with those who possessed their own harems. Therefore, he organized these gatherings with the purpose of criticizing, attacking, and cursing people who had many girlfriends or were surrounded by too many girls. Noor sighed wearily. It sounded like voluntarily going somewhere just to hear people vent their anger. The special weekend event finally entered its most important phase. When the first person presented their harem, the atmosphere in the auditorium suddenly became quiet. All eyes turned toward them, but instead of admiration, those around displayed discomfort mixed with disgust. Just a moment later, a series of murmurs rang out. Some people grimaced, while others tried to control their nausea. The cause was nothing other than the image of the person who had just stepped onto the stage. From attire to appearance, everything was at an unbelievably terrible level. Some critical individuals bluntly criticized, saying that if they had to look at this appearance every day, growing horns on their head would be more bearable. Not long after, the first group received an extremely low score and was immediately eliminated from the competition. The following groups were no better, as they received increasingly harsh criticism. In the midst of the suffocating atmosphere, a team suddenly appeared that completely reversed the situation. They were adventurers from another guild, not only possessing formidable strength, but also having a very impressive harem. Although the surrounding crowd very much wanted to continue mocking because of the huge disparity, no one dared to voice any objections. At this time, all gazes immediately turned toward Noor and the girls beside him. The surrounding group eagerly waited to see if his harem was strong enough to surpass what they had just witnessed. Emma was the first to step up. With just a few simple introductions, she easily attracted attention from the crowd. Unexpectedly, just with her confidence and aura, she made the atmosphere more vibrant than ever. Next was Luna, who possessed elegant beauty and a gentleness that few could resist. Her appearance almost made many people around forget their initial intention to mock. Her attractive appearance combined with refined temperament helped her completely capture everyone's gaze. Finally, there was Nona, someone with a delicate beauty but a way of speaking that was irresistibly sweet. When she spoke, the atmosphere immediately calmed down. Everyone seemed to only know how to silently listen. Many previous comments disappeared, replaced by undisguised admiration. The final result was announced. The score that Noor and the girls achieved was nearly perfect, higher than anyone before. But this was just the beginning. The real challenge of this event was still ahead. The next round wasn't simply a beauty show. To win, teams needed to display affection in the most authentic way according to 3 different scenarios. Each member of the harem had to, based on the content of the script, express emotions as convincingly as possible. After discussion, the 3 girls decided to keep their plans secret to create a surprising performance. The first scene began with a situation where Noor was cold and needed to be warmed up. However, the atmosphere quickly became strange when their care was somewhat excessive, making the audience feel like they were watching an emotional performance rather than a competition. Realizing this situation seemed inappropriate, they decided to move on to the next scenario. This time, the situation was that Noor had a cold and needed care. To add authenticity, they used a loaf of bread as a supporting prop. The situation seemed very normal, but their affectionate gazes made the audience unable to look away. However, when the atmosphere became too sweet, some people felt they couldn't bear it anymore. They decided to speed up the process by passing this challenge to move on to the final part. This was the most important part, where Noor had to prove that his harem was superior to all others. However, he had no idea what to do to demonstrate this most convincingly. Just when he was still confused, the three girls unexpectedly approached and gently placed affectionate kisses on his lips. That scene made the entire audience stunned. Some people in the crowd began to remember their past loves. Feelings of jealousy surged to the point where they couldn't bear it anymore. With no other choice, the organizers had to award all the prizes to Noor and quickly end the event. Chaotic emotions spread throughout the auditorium, but victory had convincingly belonged to him. Thanks to the prize money received and the attentive care from the three girls, Noor finally collected enough life points to activate the edit skill. Previously, Luna had said that dispelling this curse was almost impossible, but that didn't mean there was no way to do it. The curse that Maria was bearing was so strong that even someone with elven blood like Luna would find it difficult to withstand. If she used her ability, her lifespan would certainly be seriously affected. However, with the newly perfected edit skill, Noor changed the conditions for using Luna's ability. Instead of trading lifespan, the price to pay would now be converted to money. Although born a noble, Maria had never shown distance, but always treated Noor sincerely. She was the only one who recognized his effort, which made him deeply appreciate her. Therefore, Noor was determined to save her at all costs, not hesitating to use a large amount of life points to break the curse. The headache was somewhat uncomfortable, but Noor understood clearly that just by being intimate with a beautiful girl, life points would quickly recover. Unexpectedly, Maria gently approached and gave him an emotional kiss. That sudden contact made the headache gradually disappear. However, Noor still had to focus on the most important goal at the moment, completing the curse removal process. Luna used her power to slowly remove each layer of the curse wrapped tightly around Maria. The pain that had been tormenting her for so long also gradually disappeared. To ensure there was no danger left, Noor immediately activated the inspection skill. The results showed that the deadly curse that had threatened Maria's life was now completely removed. Maria didn't know how to express her gratitude to Noor. For her, this wasn't simply a favor, but salvation for her entire life. For this reason, she decided to dedicate the time ahead to repay this kindness. Throughout these days, Noor had continuously strived to help Maria escape from tragedy. It felt wonderful to be able to help someone who treasured and was so grateful to him. Nevertheless, not everyone felt at ease about this. Emma and Nona began to worry because they realized Maria seemed to be completely won over by Noor. This wasn't strange, as even Luna had been moved by him. It couldn't be denied that Noor truly had a great attraction to women. After completing the curse removal, he returned to meet Olivia to recount the entire story. Upon hearing it, she slightly raised her eyebrows, showing dissatisfaction. With her experience, Olivia quickly realized something unusual. "It seems today you've kissed quite a lot," she asked, her tone carrying a hint of teasing. If that was the case, it was truly unfair. Olivia was the only one who hadn't experienced that feeling. Although she very much wanted to take the initiative, her current condition didn't allow her to do so. That feeling of helplessness made Olivia somewhat irritated. Seeing this, Noor bent down and placed a light kiss on her forehead. Although not completely satisfied, Olivia accepted this. "If that's the case, you should practice thoroughly with those girls first. When you're confident enough, come back here and kiss me properly." The next morning, Noor surprisingly received a rather large sum of money from Maria. Although he hadn't asked for anything, she still wanted to express her gratitude this way. Luna quickly planned to use half of that money to renovate her healing area, aiming to improve conditions for receiving patients. Meanwhile, Noor didn't know what to do with the rest, so he brought the money home to ask for everyone's opinion. He immediately caught his father's attention, who promptly suggested that he should give the money to him to manage. However, no one in the family agreed with this, as everyone understood that if he gave the money to him, it would quickly disappear at the gambling table. Not wanting to waste this opportunity, Noor decided to proceed with a plan to open a materials shop. To have enough materials for the store, Noor needed to increase activities in the dungeon. By the way, he also took the chance to visit Olivia, but no matter how much he called, she didn't answer. Suspecting something was wrong, Noor immediately checked her condition. Suddenly, Olivia unexpectedly made a strange sound, startling him. Seeing his alert expression, she laughed with amusement and admitted that she was just teasing a bit. Looking at the confused Noor, Olivia made an important suggestion. He should create a teleportation skill in the dungeon. With this ability, exploration would become much more convenient. Additionally, Olivia also advised him to develop another skill called Blinding Light. True to its name, it could temporarily blind monsters, helping Noor easily control the situation in many dangerous scenarios. Since the upper floors didn't have too many challenges, he decided to go deeper to find new opportunities. Before Noor now was a giant creature with pitch-black fur and cold eyes, a majestic black lion. Recognizing the potential danger, he immediately activated the Parounder checking skill. However, the power disparity was too great, causing all information about it to be hidden. Not wanting to take risks, Noor quickly used Blinding Light to temporarily disable its vision while preparing to teleport to the first floor to ensure safety. However, before he could implement his intention, a calm voice suddenly rang out. What was more surprising was that the owner of that voice was the lion before him. Instead of showing hostility, it calmly said that he didn't need to be afraid. It had no intention of causing danger and even wanted to propose a deal. The black lion promised to help Noor move safely to the 6th floor. In return, he had to help it find someone. The person it was looking for was named Tiger Sun, a name given by a close friend. In the past, they had explored dungeons together, but upon reaching the 5th floor, that friend decided to continue the journey alone and proceed to the 6th floor. Since that time, Tiger Sun had been patiently waiting on the 5th floor, hoping for a reunion someday. Time passed like that, and now it had been waiting for 3 centuries. Despite being a powerful creature, Tiger Sun had never set foot on the floor below. Perhaps it had become accustomed to staying in this place, or maybe for some reason it couldn't go further. After consideration, Noor decided to help it fulfill its wish. With support from the Black Lion, he easily accessed the 6th floor without encountering danger. But as soon as he set foot down, a frightening scene immediately appeared. Countless zombies began to appear from all directions. Faced with this dangerous situation, Noor quickly sought to evade, hurriedly rushing into a nearby room to temporarily hide. However, as soon as he entered, another dark figure appeared, a zombie different from the others with a special presence. When Noor activated the inspection skill, all questions in his heart were immediately answered. The person standing before him was Tiger Sun's friend, who had gone down to the 6th floor hundreds of years ago. Nevertheless, for some unknown reason, he had been turned into a zombie. Not wanting to abandon him, Noor decided to sacrifice 500 life points to help him return to human state. After being restored, the man gradually regained consciousness. When Noor told him that Tiger Sun had been waiting for 300 years, emotion welled up in his eyes. In fact, his purpose in going to the 6th floor was to look for treasure. But because of this, he got trapped and couldn't return. Although he knew he had no face to confront the friend who had always protected him all this time, he couldn't continue to avoid it. After a final silence, he finally made a decision. He would meet Tiger Sun one last time before returning to his hometown. Even knowing that every reunion would eventually have to part, the man still couldn't suppress the regret of having to leave his companion of hundreds of years. On the surface, there was a girl waiting for him to return, so taking Tiger Sun along was impossible. Between the two, neither intended to hold the other back. They understood that despite any lingering attachment, each had their own path to continue. Finally, after a deep look, they had to say goodbye here. Noor didn't want to intrude on that moment of parting, so he silently used teleportation to return to the 1st floor. Meanwhile, the two old friends were also moving slowly toward the exit. It seemed they had many things to express, so each step was slow, as if wanting to prolong their final moment together. Witnessing this scene, Noor suddenly felt curious. The first time they met, he had always appeared calm, even somewhat stoic, yet now a completely different image appeared before his eyes. No longer with the serious demeanor as before, he cried like a child, letting tears silently roll down his experienced face. Although he had mentally prepared for this day, when the moment actually came, he couldn't maintain his inherent strength. Noor wanted to befriend him, and even suggested Tiger Sun come to his home to rest. Although just a simple mat, at least it was warmer than the coldness of the dungeon. After returning, Noor began preparing a plan to open a shop selling materials from monsters. While thinking about how to manage the store, he suddenly came up with an idea. Tiger Sun could perfectly take on the role of security guard. Although it looked fierce, it was actually very reliable. When hearing about this, his mother quickly prepared a grand feast to welcome the new member. Meanwhile, his father expressed curiosity about the tulip flower growing on Tiger Sun's head. No one knew what function it had. When someone touched it, its reaction surprised everyone. It seemed Alice found this too interesting and accidentally went a bit too far, making everyone in the house unable to hold back their laughter. That morning, Emma stopped by Nora's house to go to school together. Although she always appeared bold on the outside, when he inadvertently let his eyes drift downward, she felt shy. Soon, the distance between them narrowed when Emma suddenly moved forward, gently embracing him to help recover life points. Nora also wanted to hug her back, but on the crowded street, he couldn't comfortably do so. Though outwardly appearing calm, Emma still blushed as usual. After arriving at school, Maria actively approached, not only to express gratitude for the previous day, but also to take the opportunity to hug him. At that moment, the teacher entered the classroom and began explaining the content of the upcoming test. Within 2 weeks, all students would have to collect many rare materials according to a provided list. If they didn't meet the requirements, that student would have to attend supplementary classes throughout the summer. The listed materials were extremely difficult to find, to the extent that they couldn't be purchased in regular markets. The only option was to rely on adventurers to help collect them. As soon as he thought of this, Nor decided to seek out Nona. However, upon entering the guild, he heard arguments echoing from inside. It seemed that Nona was having issues with another receptionist. That person was Sarah, an ambitious employee who always tried to snatch adventurers from others. She even brazenly challenged Nona, saying that if she won, Sarah would take away one of her adventurers. Recognizing the somewhat disadvantageous situation, he immediately used the skill to check Sarah's information. As expected, the Parander display showed a series of skills specifically used to seduce men, a set of frighteningly powerful abilities in a particular way. Nor began to feel the situation was extremely dangerous if Nona failed in this contest. His personal receptionist position would fall into the hands of a woman capable of shaking the will of any man. He didn't know what would happen if Nor actually fell under her special care. Within the scope of the material collection test, Nor realized this was also a good opportunity to support Nona in the upcoming battle. Luna showed excitement for this trip. Not only that, she also declared she wanted to accompany him in all future missions. After finalizing the team formation, the group began completing the materials list as requested by Nona. While carrying out the mission, they also planned to deal with a powerful dragon hiding in the outskirts. To prepare for the battle, the money received from the Adventurer Guild was utilized to purchase necessary equipment. Nor took the chance to increase his life points by being close to Emma, Luna, and Alice to ensure he had enough stamina before encountering the monster. After completing preparations, the young adventurer group headed straight to the dragon's territory. Upon arrival, Nor immediately used Great Sager to determine its exact location. A headache followed right after he activated the skill, but Emma quickly kissed his forehead to soothe the discomfort. Once they had located the target, the group deployed traps around the battle area. The plan was executed meticulously, step by step. Nor charged straight to where the dragon was sleeping soundly, deliberately provoking it by attacking the hard scales on its body. Provoked, the monster immediately roared angrily and rushed toward him. As soon as it fell into the trap area, numerous mechanisms were activated, putting it at a disadvantage. Emma and Luna didn't miss the opportunity, coordinating to disrupt the enemy's vision. Surrounded and unable to resist, the giant monster quickly fell before the perfect coordination of the group. After completing the battle with the dragon, Nor and his teammates collected all the necessary materials for the test before leaving the dangerous area. Surplus items were brought to Nona to support her in the competition with Sarah. Thanks to the materials that Nor provided, Nona's total points far exceeded her opponents. However, Sarah was not easily defeated. She had prepared in advance, making the results still somewhat unfavorable for Nona. What surprised Nora most was the exhausted state of the adventurers serving Sarah. They looked no different from walking corpses, striving to the point of physical and mental deterioration just to earn a reward from her. Without even guessing, one would know for certain that what Sarah gave them was definitely not a pure reward. After the competition temporarily concluded, Nona pulled Nor into a private room. There, she gave him a list of special missions along with an extremely attractive condition. If he completed any mission on the list, Nor would have the right to touch any position on her body. Before officially starting the challenge, Nona also wanted to take time to serve him a bit, as a reward to encourage his spirit. However, Nor didn't rush to accept the reward but left to find Olivia, asking for her support in the journey down to the 7th floor of the dungeon. Since this area contained many rare items, he needed to develop more new skills to deal with many potential dangers. After some research, Nor created a unique form of magic by fusing multiple elements together. By combining stone bullets and cremation, he created a type of magic that only he could use. Its power was immediately tested when Nor easily defeated a group of zombies blocking the way. If he continued like this, it wouldn't be long before he reached a completely different level. When stepping down to the 7th floor, Nor didn't expect this place to be a dense forest, completely contrary to his imagination of a deep dungeon. Dark space, dense trees created a mysterious atmosphere. What was stranger was that Noor felt someone was silently watching him from behind. Noor continued his journey deep into the 7th floor, where fierce creatures with high levels were appearing more and more frequently. Each step carried tension as pairs of beast eyes hid in the darkness, waiting for the right moment to strike. In that dangerous space, a small figure suddenly appeared before him. Unexpectedly, the little girl had an appearance identical to Emma when she was young. From her hair, eyes to her adorable expressions, the similarities stunned Noor. The little girl urgently begged him for help, her voice carrying desperation and plea. If this situation continued, she would not be able to maintain her life much longer. Seemingly feeling that it wasn't enough to move Noor, she began to act cute in an adorable way, as if knowing exactly what his weakness was. The truth was gradually revealed. The little girl wasn't human but Doji, a giant tree managing this forest. Thanks to her special skill, Doji could observe and be aware of all events occurring in the area. She deliberately created the shape of a little girl because she knew that would make Noor pay more attention. Currently, an evil force was invading the deep forest. A strange monster was draining Doji's life force, causing her to gradually weaken and be unable to resist. If Noor agreed to help, she would reveal the location of a secret treasure and also guide the way down to the 8th floor of the dungeon. Realizing the value of that treasure, Noor understood it could help Nona a lot in her confrontation with Sarah. First, he needed more information about the creature that had caused Doji to fall into this state. To do this, she led Noor to the place containing her true body, an ancient tree deep in the forest. Upon arrival, he could clearly feel her weakness. The energy source was being drained by a strange creature firmly attached to the roots. She was happy to hear those words and ran to him, clinging tightly to the tree trunk to drain the essence of life. Compared to the monsters Noor had encountered before, this creature had a superior level, emitting a cold aura. Noor stood still, observing from afar, aware that if he recklessly approached right now, he would immediately become prey to that monster. Doji's body grew weaker as her life force was drained. Her skin and human form became pale, her eyes full of pain. If this process continued, it was feared she wouldn't be able to hold on much longer. Fear flashed in Doji's eyes, reflecting the emotion of someone facing imminent death. Although she was an entity existing for hundreds of years, now she was no different from a small human driven to a dead end. Noor couldn't ignore it. The helplessness of seeing someone he cared about gradually fade reminded him of a close person from his childhood. The feeling of wanting to protect someone at any cost rose within him. As a way of showing gratitude for his concern, Doji gently placed a kiss on Noor's cheek. That unexpected moment made him momentarily confused. If Olivia witnessed this scene, she would certainly complain endlessly. Thinking about his master also made Noor remember something. Olivia might have a way to help him overcome this situation. However, if directly confronting that creature right now, the chance of victory was almost zero. Irelia, one of the people he had fought, had mentioned a method that could turn the situation around, which gave Noor a bold plan. The first step, he used the targeting skill on a nest of golden bees. The next step, he had to lure 7 wild wolves near the bee nest, provoking them to make both species attack each other. A chaotic fight broke out as soon as the wolves approached, causing the area to become chaotic. But while Noor was implementing the plan, the creature clinging to Doji continued to drain her life force. Unable to hesitate another second, he rushed forth, launching a powerful attack against the enemy to stop that process. At the same time, the wolves caught up, surrounding Noor, creating a dangerous situation. Noor immediately activated his skill, shifting the wolves' attention to the golden bees. Afterward, the wolves charged and attacked the bees furiously, but their rage also caused the previous wolf pack to be completely swept away. However, although the immediate danger had been eliminated, the golden bees also suffered serious damage after the intense battle. Recognizing this was an appropriate opportunity, Noor utilized his skill to combine magic, mixing water and lightning elements to create an overwhelming attack. High-voltage currents transmitted through the liquid layer immersed the creature in extreme pain before it was completely destroyed. Keeping her promise, Doji led Noor to a secret area in the forest, where a treasure had been hidden for many years. When opened, inside were 2 valuable items, including a wind element stone, very suitable for many spells that Maria used. After collecting these valuable rewards, Noor was escorted out of the forest by Doji. Without hesitation, he quickly went to the Adventurer Guild to deliver the items to Nona. His appearance made the atmosphere in the guild more lively, because today was the day to announce the rankings. Each adventurer represented a counselor in the guild. The person with the highest total money would win in this evaluation round. The competition became increasingly tense, and when only 2 names remained, Noor realized that his opponent was Sarah's representative. The guild master watched with attentive eyes as the final result was announced. The winner was none other than Noor. Thanks to the superior points he had accumulated, Nona officially won the top position in this ranking. This also meant that, as per the previous agreement, Sarah would no longer have the right to take any adventurers from Nona. Despite the defeat, Sarah didn't show anger or disappointment. On the contrary, she slowly approached Noor, giving him a small piece of paper. When he opened it, he saw that inside was a line with the exact address of her room. Early the next morning, Noor decided to give the Wind Element Stone to Emma. As soon as she received the power source hidden inside, she immediately felt the change in her body. Thanks to the special ability of the stone, Emma not only significantly increased her strength, but also learned 2 new skills, helping her expand her fighting capabilities. While Noor was still busy observing the effects of the gift, Emma unexpectedly spoke up, inviting him to attend a party at her mansion over the weekend. Moreover, she also expressed her desire to dance with him during this special occasion. However, not stopping there, Emma's eyes suddenly became sharp when she mentioned a dangerous scenario. Would Noor remain calm if someone tried to take her away from him? If she fell into the hands of villains and was forced to do things against her will, would he still see her the same as before? With those words, Emma left, leaving Noor still pondering what he had just heard. When returning home, he searched for a suitable formal attire for the upcoming party. However, his father's clothing was not an ideal choice. The stained jacket with a strong smell of alcohol made it impossible for him to wear. It turned out that his father had accidentally spilled alcohol on it many years ago and had never washed it clean. Finally, Noor decided to buy a new outfit to avoid unnecessary trouble. Time flew by, and the day of the party officially began. However, just a few days before, Emma's mansion had received a threatening letter from a mysterious person. The sender was none other than Phantom, a notorious super thief. Looking at Emma's worried expression, Noor knew that this situation was not simple. If that thief had personally notified in advance, he must be targeting a very valuable item in her house. Nevertheless, to ensure the safety of the party, Emma's family had invited more adventurers to assist. What surprised Noor most was that among those recruited, there was a girl around his age but possessing an incredibly superior level. When the final guests had settled in, the party officially began. Brilliant light from multiple crystal chandeliers illuminated the hall, creating an elegant but no less lively atmosphere. While Noor was still observing his surroundings, a young nobleman from a powerful family approached Emma with a confident smile. It seemed that young man intended to invite her to dance. Emma showed no interest. Despite his continuous invitations, she still flatly refused time after time. Upon discovering that Noor and Emma had known each other since childhood, that nobleman showed dissatisfaction, his eyes containing a bit of challenge. Not willing to let Emma continue to be close to Noor, he immediately made a bold proposal, a dance competition right in the middle of the party. The winner would have the opportunity to date Emma privately. Under normal circumstances, Noor rarely paid attention to meaningless provocations. However, this time was completely different. The thought of Emma happily conversing with someone else, or worse, holding hands while strolling through the streets, made an uncomfortable feeling rise within him. Therefore, he didn't hesitate to accept the challenge. In the first round, Emma and that nobleman completed their dance. When it was Noor's turn, he couldn't help feeling a bit tense, although he had previously secretly used life points to learn the dancing skill. Recognizing his concern, Emma just gently smiled and said, "Let's just enjoy this moment together. Don't think about anything else." Given the added confidence, Noor led the dance skillfully. Thanks to the learned skill, all his movements became extremely proficient. Each step exuded gracefulness and harmony. The two seemed to blend into each melody, attracting the eyes of everyone present. When the final piece of music ended, Noor received resounding applause. The result was clear: he was the winner. The moment Emma looked up at Noor, her eyes were full of joy. The space around seemed to have only the two of them. He bent down, intending to give her a kiss. But just as their lips were about to touch, the lights in the great hall suddenly went out, murmurs echoing from everywhere, and when the light returned, a figure suddenly appeared. It was Phantom, the notorious thief, who came not only to steal the treasure but also targeting Emma. Noor suddenly remembered the words Emma had said earlier. She had been trying to warn him, but he hadn't realized the true meaning hidden behind her words. While the two adventurers hired as bodyguards rushed to attack Phantom, another figure unexpectedly appeared from behind. In the blink of an eye, Emma was captured. The enemy not only took the valuable treasure, but also successfully carried her away from the party. Without a moment's hesitation, Noor immediately followed the kidnapper's trail along with one of the remaining adventurers. During the pursuit, he discovered an important truth. The enemy possessed a summoning skill, creating continuous obstacles to block his progress. If he couldn't find a way to counter, approaching them would be almost impossible. Noor quickly checked his life points, but his current amount wasn't enough to completely erase the opponent's summoning skill. In this deadlock, he realized an important weakness. The enemy showed particular fear of the lightning element, but the biggest problem now was that the range of the lightning skill he possessed was limited to about 3 meters. Noor immediately utilized the gravity adjustment skill, making many of the enemy's summoned creatures significantly slower. When recognizing a favorable opportunity, he immediately combined the water element to coordinate with Layla in the next attack. At the moment the opponent raised his hand to block the rushing water, Noor immediately activated the electric current skill, making the water instantly become a tool to conduct lightning, paralyzing the enemy's body. At the same time, Emma didn't miss the opportunity to quickly eliminate all the summoned beasts blocking the way. When it seemed everything was resolved, another person unexpectedly appeared. It was Layla's group leader. Noor immediately used the appraisal skill to check his information, but strangely, no data appeared. There was only one case that could explain this. He had used a disguise spell. Without hesitation, Noor activated the boundary-breaking skill, a skill capable of nullifying all types of disguise spells. Immediately after, the true appearance of that person was revealed. It turned out he wasn't an ally but one of those behind the plot to kidnap Emma. His real purpose was to take her as his wife, to make that girl his own. Anger surged within Noor. He would never let that happen. However, before he could act, the enemy quickly set up a controlling barrier, causing Noor to fall into a temporary state of immobility. While the enemy was concentrating his power to maintain the seal, Emma unexpectedly regained consciousness. Realizing the person in front of her was responsible for her predicament, without a moment's hesitation, she delivered a kick straight to his face. At the same time, the seal was broken. Noor immediately rushed forward, concentrating all his strength to deliver a decisive blow, giving the opponent no chance to resist. After rescuing Emma, he approached and placed a kiss on her lips. Layla, standing nearby, momentarily blushed but maintained composure, quickly using ropes to tie up the thief for handover to the Adventurer Guild for processing. Finally, all troubles were resolved. To thank Noor for rescuing their daughter, Emma's family decided to support him in opening a store in town. Not only that, they also offered a special deal, the rent being only 1/10 of the actual price. Everything seemed to have ended well, but at the moment Emma embraced Noor to show gratitude, he felt a strange killing intent. When he turned his head, Alice's cold eyes were staring directly at him, emanating a dangerously chilling feeling. On that morning, the teacher stood before the class with a more serious expression than usual, attracting the attention of all students. Today there were 2 extremely important announcements, and everyone needed to listen carefully. The first announcement caused the class to buzz with excitement. A new student was about to transfer, none other than Layla. This girl had appeared in some previous events, and now she would officially become part of the class. Many curious eyes turned toward her. Some were happy, others showed concern for unclear reasons. The second announcement made the atmosphere even more lively. A field trip combined with training at a hot spring would be organized in the upcoming time. Just hearing the words hot spring, Emma immediately showed excitement. She had always liked such places, perhaps because of the relaxing feeling they brought. Noor, however, felt something wasn't right. With the character of some male students in the class, this matter was likely not to proceed as smoothly as expected. If Emma went bathing without precaution, who knew what tricks those guys might pull? The atmosphere in the class gradually shifted to a strange direction as the group of boys began whispering to each other about improper things, emanating a type of aura that made the female students wary. Some even seriously looked at Noor, as if expecting him to stand up and stop the others. However, what surprised Noor most was the absolute trust the group of girls had in him. No one doubted he would participate in those pointless jokes, which made Noor feel both relieved and somewhat pressured. Finally, the departure day arrived. On the way, some male students accidentally discovered a trap set on the road. Shortly after, a small creature appeared, looking like a tiny dwarf, and began explaining that this was a trap set up by a group of robbers. Noor immediately connected this information with what he knew about the fire dwarf tribe, a species with a rather complex relationship with humans. Emma seemed to have realized something too, but instead of speaking up, she decided to let the class handle this situation themselves. After overcoming the first obstacle, the group continued moving toward the hot spring. However, instead of arriving smoothly, they were led into a strange cave. Noor immediately sensed the hidden danger. His intuition wasn't wrong. Something was hiding in the darkness, a threat not yet revealed. The deeper they went, the greater the sense of unease grew, and it didn't take long for the truth to finally be exposed. The guide had no good intentions from the start. She was someone capable of controlling monsters, and when she realized she had been discovered, she immediately revealed her true form. Right after, a group of giant lizards appeared, blocking the path, ready to attack anyone who dared to advance. Instead of showing panic, the female students in the class displayed an unexpected reaction. Having just bathed, their spirits seemed more refreshed than ever. Without hesitation, the group rushed into battle with an astonishing energy source, quickly sweeping away the monsters blocking the path. It seemed that not only did the hot spring bring relaxation, but it also significantly restored their fighting spirit. When they escaped from the cave, they finally reached the hot spring. It was a place with beautiful nature. Due to the large number of people, the time to use the bathing area was divided into 2 separate sessions. Currently, the first session was for the female students, with some people wanting to bathe immediately, but they were still cautious, worrying that some might take advantage of the opportunity to do something improper. Nevertheless, the group seemed to decide to place their trust in Noor once more. While the female students happily entered the hot spring area to enjoy a rare relaxing time, the male students secretly prepared a bold plan. They didn't hesitate to disguise themselves and find ways to sneak into the forbidden area to satisfy their curiosity. However, Noor had no intention of getting involved in this behavior. Betraying the trust of the girls who had believed in him was something he absolutely wouldn't allow. Realizing he wasn't on their side, many of them immediately shifted their target to try to stop or drag him along. When the situation gradually got out of control, some decided to recklessly rush toward the forbidden area. Right in front of the bathroom door, the teacher was already waiting. But the ringleader showed no sign of backing down. He not only possessed superior physical strength, but also prepared many supporting items, even using enhancement drugs to increase speed and power. It seemed that in his eyes, nothing could obstruct this ambition. For some people, this might be an opportunity they didn't want to miss. But for Noor, such actions were nothing but an insult to his personal honor. He would never trade his self-respect just to pursue trivial desires. Without hesitation, he activated a special skill to weaken the opponent, causing him to lose all his strength. Thinking everything was resolved, surprisingly, another person, perhaps a bit smarter, pretended to be unconscious to sneak into the forbidden area. Detecting something unusual, Noor immediately rushed to prevent things from going too far. Although the female students were prepared to enter the hot spring area, they still had to delay their plan because of a reminder from the teacher. Afterward, Noor was rewarded by the teacher and female friends for trying to stop the male students with improper intention. And that reward was that Noor was allowed to bathe together with the female students, but had to be blindfolded. This was truly something that all the male students in the class would envy. Today was a momentous day as his store officially opened. Thanks to Nona's dedicated support, everything went extremely smoothly. Customers came and went, creating a bustling atmosphere. Before having time to chat longer with him, Nona was pulled away by Luna to the Adventurer Guild, leaving him to continue his business. Meanwhile, his friends returned and decided to try the special dish of the shop. Unexpectedly, after just one bite, they were extremely surprised by the unbelievably delicious flavor. The dish that everyone admired turned out to be prepared from slime meat. When in the dungeon, he had tasted this meat and discovered that its flavor wasn't bad, even quite special. Therefore, he decided to include this dish in the main menu of the shop. When seeing that the store was stable and everything was handed over to reliable people, he immediately set off to meet his master. Today, more than ever, he wanted to demonstrate his determination. The most sincere gratitude he could offer to that teacher was to help her escape from the imprisonment that had lasted for so many years. Seeing the rare smile on Olivia's face, he became even more resolved. To find a method to break the seal, he immediately activated the Great Sager skill to gather information. After analyzing, the answer appeared more clearly. The 15th floor of the dungeon would bring the key to release. Before he could go down to the needed place, he had to pass through the 14th floor where there was a strange sign. If going alone, choose the left door. If going as a group of 2, choose the right path. Initially, he chose the first option, but as soon as he stepped inside, a challenge appeared. The rules in this area required participants not to use any skills. Realizing that continuing the journey alone would be extremely difficult, he decided to return to discuss with Emma. After hearing him recount everything related to Olivia, Emma didn't hesitate to agree to help. No matter what happened, she was determined to accompany him to the end. When both entered the 14th floor and chose the path for a group of 2, an unexpected situation occurred. Before them was a swarm of tiny monsters in overwhelming numbers. Instead of attacking immediately, he quickly made a different decision. Taking some cakes from his bag, he held them up as a bribe to negotiate with them. These small creatures changed their attitude right away, seemingly completely attracted by the food. However, things weren't that simple. Not only did they demand more cakes, but they also required Emma to perform some entertainment to amuse them. But no one in the group was interested in meeting this bizarre request. Looking at the greedy creatures becoming increasingly excessive, he quickly thought of a way to deal with them. This time, instead of giving cakes as before, he carefully added some toxins inside. The provocative actions of the monsters earlier had made Emma feel uncomfortable. Without hesitation, she immediately responded with a merciless beating. After resolving this issue, they continued their journey and finally reached the 15th floor. Unexpectedly, as soon as they set foot here, he surprisingly encountered Olivia. Her appearance in the deepest area of the dungeon made him curious. To clarify the situation, he used the analysis skill, and immediately an important discovery appeared before his eyes. The death chain truly still existed here, while what he had seen on the second floor was merely an incomplete copy. Observing more carefully, he noticed that on a nearby wall, there was an important annotation engraved. According to the recorded content, if he wanted to rescue Olivia without harming her, he had to find a way to defeat the force imprisoning her. Emma didn't hesitate, immediately acting by delivering a powerful blow aimed at destroying the chain binding Olivia. However, at the moment the chain was broken, a horrifying truth was revealed. What was in front of them wasn't the real Olivia, but only a disguise of the death chain. If they wanted to save Olivia, they had to defeat this entity. However, the opponent wasn't as simple as those before. Noticing that the chain had sealed off the entire area, making it impossible for Emma to approach, he immediately made a bold decision. When the opportunity arose, he activated dungeon teleportation, escaping from the dangerous space and returning to the first floor to find another option. Taking advantage of this time, he introduced Emma to Olivia. Nevertheless, the biggest concern in his heart still couldn't be removed. If the death chain really had the ability to copy Olivia's power, then the upcoming battle would be extremely arduous. Therefore, he decided to ask Olivia about Aurelia's weaknesses to find a way to counter. However, instead of giving an answer, Olivia advised him to give up. For her, seeing him fight wholeheartedly was enough to make her feel happy. But this advice only made his determination stronger. He needed a reason, the reason why Aurelia had always treated him so well. Not only teaching, imparting skills, but also providing him with countless valuable information. He had never done anything for her, yet all this time, Aurelia never stopped helping. Without Aurelia, everything would perhaps be completely different. Because of this, he couldn't accept standing by and watching her be imprisoned forever. No matter how difficult, he would find every way to rescue Aurelia. The next day, he began to research records related to Olivia, hoping to find clues that could help him in the upcoming battle. According to collected documents, as soon as she set foot in this land, she immediately engaged in combat with a priest possessing superior power. That fierce battle ended with victory belonging to Olivia. The special point about that priest was his unique ability, sacrifice. This skill had the ability to sacrifice some other forces to enhance the user's power for a limited time. The higher the sacrifice level, the greater the power received. However, the duration of the effect was extremely short, forcing the user to calculate carefully before activating. He quickly realized that this was the only key to help him confront Olivia's copy. However, before thinking about fighting, he needed to elevate his strength to a new height, because no matter how powerful a skill he possessed, if he didn't have sufficient level and adaptability, victory would still be impossible. Unexpectedly, while he was still preparing, Olivia's copy suddenly escaped from the dungeon and headed straight to his position. Her sudden appearance left him unprepared. The sole objective of this entity was to eliminate anyone who dared to set foot on the 15th floor. In another corner, the real Olivia wasn't only deeply sealed inside, but also had to endure persistent pain. Witnessing this scene, he couldn't stand by and watch. To confront the enemy before him, he accepted sacrificing 3 of his important skills to explode power in a short time. Thanks to this, he moved closer to approaching the enemy, but the distance was still too far. Despite enhancing his strength, all his attacks seemed unable to reach her. Conversely, after just a few strikes, the opponent gradually completely dominated. By the time he realized the power difference between the two sides, his body no longer had the ability to move. The reason was the sword that the opponent was holding. It carried the lightning attribute, not only paralyzing the body but also sealing all reflexes. 2 centuries ago, a young man with many facial features similar to him had come to Olivia, wishing to be accepted as a disciple. However, instead of accepting, she immediately refused decisively. Despite being rejected so many times, he persisted without giving up, following Olivia everywhere, even to the bathroom. A stubbornness to the extent that she found extremely annoying. Not because of momentary admiration, but this person had a promise with his deceased friend. That was to strive endlessly to become the strongest adventurer. Seeing that determination, Olivia reluctantly gave him a chance. She set a condition that if he could make her injured even slightly, he would be recognized as a disciple. However, despite giving his all the young man's attacks were easily evaded by her. His skills were still too immature to shake a master like Olivia. After witnessing the huge disparity in strength, she frankly advised him to give up the dream of becoming an adventurer. However, even though that advice came from sincerity, he still resolutely refused to back down. Day after day, the young man still came to find her, not to beg for an opportunity, but simply to learn more combat experience. After more than a month passed, Olivia began to have serious thoughts about accepting him as a disciple. Although outwardly she still appeared cold, deep inside she gradually accepted that young man's presence. But on the day she was prepared to make a decision, tragic news arrived. That young man had sacrificed himself to protect a child from a monster. The opponent he faced had power far beyond control, making the battle hopeless from the beginning. If the day before she had agreed to accept him as a disciple, perhaps things wouldn't have come to this end. From then on, for 200 long years, Olivia remained in loneliness and regret. In the following days, no matter how many battles she went through, no matter how many people she met, no one could replace the deeply engraved figure in her memory. Until he appeared, someone bearing an excessive resemblance to the young man of the past. It was also for this reason that Olivia decided to pass her skills to him. She knew well that this action couldn't change the past. At least when seeing his smile, she could feel something of the past that remained. Just as his sacrifice effect was about to deplete, the opponent in front of him prepared to deliver the finishing blow. But at the moment the sword was about to come down, Emilia suddenly appeared and rushed in to block. Not only her, but also Nona, Luna, and Layla came to support. Not wasting the opportunity, he immediately activated the edit skill, removing the paralysis state from the sword. At the same time, Layla quickly rushed in to deliver a powerful attack. Although Layla had given her all to confront, the opponent still easily dominated. Without hesitation, she activated a special skill, taking down Layla in the blink of an eye. However, the worst hadn't stopped there. Right after, the surrounding temperature suddenly increased to a terrifying degree, directly affecting all four of his companions. Their entire bodies seemed to be burning from within. Each breath became more urgent than ever. Unable to let his teammates suffer more damage, he immediately drew out stone bullets aimed straight at the target in front of him and launched a counterattack. Nevertheless, all efforts became futile, faced with the opponent's superior controllability. Many stone bullets were not only nullified but also countered extremely quickly. In just a moment, his body was suddenly frozen, limbs stiffened, making movement extremely difficult. In this life or death situation, a cold voice rang out, advising him to give up this meaningless battle. But even if driven to the edge, he never had any intention of backing down, because the most important goal had not yet been achieved. If he couldn't rescue Aurelia, then all the efforts from before would become meaningless. To defeat the powerful enemy before him, he didn't hesitate to sacrifice all his skills, keeping only 3 important techniques taught by his master. Power immediately increased significantly, yet still not enough to create even the smallest wound on the opponent's body. Noticing this change, she also began to take things more seriously, preparing to deliver the finishing blow. At the exact moment she was concentrating force to prepare for attack, he immediately took advantage of the opportunity to place his entire life force into a single strike. Without hesitation, he poured all remaining strength into that blow. A gigantic energy source exploded, tearing apart the Dark Knight, completely destroying the evil entity blocking the way. Finally, the death chain had been completely destroyed. However, the price to pay was not small. His life points were almost depleted. His body was so exhausted that he couldn't move. Seeing this, all 4 companions immediately rushed over, providing special care to help him recover. Thanks to that help, his life force quickly stabilized again. When regaining some strength, he decided to move toward Olivia. At this time, the sealing chain had been completely broken. She was finally free after a long period of imprisonment. Too emotional, he couldn't restrain himself and rushed straight into Olivia's arms. Not only many people around, but even she herself didn't expect that he could be so strong and brave. Perhaps what happened in the battle just now not only changed his life, but also made Olivia's heart waver. If that day he hadn't appeared, then perhaps she would have been imprisoned in the dark dungeon forever. And at this very moment, a new relationship was formed. After everything ended, daily life gradually returned. However, instead of resting, he still continued to train, even being directly guided by Layla on some new techniques. It had to be admitted that these techniques were truly formidable, bringing an indescribable sense of excitement. Not only Layla, but Nona also participated in this special training session. Feeling unable to miss the opportunity, Luna immediately volunteered to help. While everyone hadn't yet had time to react, Emilia suddenly approached. She surprisingly placed a kiss on his lips right in front of everyone. But the biggest surprise hadn't stopped there. Amid everyone's confusion, his sister suddenly appeared, holding a gigantic sword in her hand, her eyes shining with excitement. Clearly, she also wanted to participate in this special training session.